Hey everyone, welcome back to Stay Positive. It's me, Sierra, just coming at you live from home again, during this horrific time. Honestly, it just gets worse. We're doing all right, though. I hope you guys are. I'm going to keep rolling out the podcast. We've got lots of great guests banked, so there's going to be plenty of content to keep you all distracted from, the horrors of your own mind. Okay. First of all, gotta shout out this top I'm wearing. Thank you to my mother. She actually sent me this top for my birthday, and she said, just in case you need more tops for your podcast, which she knows. She's watching the YouTube. If you guys aren't watching the YouTube, I don't know what to tell you. But I actually also just uploaded a YouTube-only video recently about, am I a YouTube comedian now? Because live comedy is, for the most part, on hold for a while. Let's just say it's got some views, so I'd love for everybody to go check it out. And I'll be uploading more videos as the time continues and as, my door remains closed. My physical gateway to the outside world remains locked and bolted. But I do have some very exciting news for you guys because I worked on a show last year now. It actually ended, I think, December of 2019, before, when we were just young babes, fresh-faced, doe-eyed, looking at the world like, oh, what's 2020 gonna bring? We didn't know it would only bring hell and brimstone, fire and brimstone. But what we did learn in 2019 is that I got to write for an awesome show called Earth to Ned. And if you don't have Disney Plus, all right, here's the thing. If you don't have Disney Plus, I pity you because I've had Disney Plus since I wrote on this show, thinking that my year trial would last me until it came out. It didn't. That's okay. Shows have to be edited and translated into bajillion languages, so I understand why it took some time. But what I got to do in the meantime is I watched what did I watch? Oh, a lot of Marvel. I watched, fucking Mandalorian. Are you kidding me? Baby Yoda. I watched so many things on Disney Plus. And then guess what? Now the show's coming out on September 4th. Mark your Disney Pluses. September 4th is a Friday. It also might be the same day that Mulan comes out, but I'm not positive. But that's exciting because, come on, you gotta love Mulan, right? I loved Mulan. A Mulan only comes around once every 25 years or however long it's been since Mulan came out. Probably 15 years. And when a Mulan comes out, you gotta watch it, Otherwise, you're asking for trouble. A Mulan is coming out. But you know what else is coming out? Earth to Ned. Earth to Ned is on Disney Plus. Okay, I've said that like 19 times. Basically, it's an alien from outer space called Ned. And Ned is an 8-foot-tall blue alien. He kind of looks like a turtle. Like a cute turtle. Like I'm talking, what's that guy's name from Nemo? Squirt. Oh, Squirt was cute. I don't know if that was his name. Anyway, regardless, he's very cute. He's actually in real life was manned by 7 different people. You got somebody in the body. You got 2 people in the arms because you got 4 arms. You got the very talented Paul Rudd doing voice and mouth. And then he's got a sidekick on the show named Cornelius, who's arguably more likable, cuter, better. And Cornelius does field pieces, meaning he leaves the studio, goes out and talks with people. One who might be me. I don't know. I might be in an episode. If I am, I'd be in the second episode. That being said, I might have been edited out because it was a very small situation. But also that was an episode that I got to write. So, listen, all the jokes on the show, I didn't necessarily write all the jokes, okay? But I contributed some. I laughed at a lot of them. And in many cases, I probably, heard them earlier than most people. I don't know what to say. Earth to Ned. We've got celebs on. There's, who's on? Just like a year ago. I'm like, what happened? There was a pandemic? I don't know. I don't remember what happened before it. We've got big guests on, like RuPaul. BB-8 makes an appearance. That might be a spoiler, but he does. And other mega stars like Oliver Hudson. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him, but he's Kate Hudson's brother. So, we were just getting our door beaten down by these hungry A-listers to come sit on the couch and talk to Ned. So please check that out. And if you don't have a Disney Plus subscription, subscribe. And don't watch anything else. First, watch Earth to Ned after you subscribe, because then the analytics are going to be like, oh, these people are all signing up just for Earth to Ned. It looks like we're going to have to, I don't know, make another season of this show, hire the same exact people, pay them more. Who knows what the possibility is? So, just a light suggestion. Yeah. So this is all exciting stuff. Back when I heard that this show that I wrote for was going to come out in September of 2020, I did not think that we would still be locked in our own homes. But maybe that is okay, because then you can watch more Earth to Ned and you'll be a captive audience and you won't be able to leave. All right. Enough about Earth to Ned. Now we got to talk about the fact that this guest is a real unique one. I didn't know her before talking with her, so this was a really, really fun, authentic chat. And she reached out because she is a dating coach and she loves to talk all things dating and empowering, specifically empowering good guys to find it within themselves to date and have a meaningful relationship. Typically guys searching for gals. Okay. So a dating coach, she's described herself as the Asian female Hitch, which is very, very accurate in some ways because she's helping men. She is Will Smith. She also is married to Jada Pinkett. I'm just kidding. She had an entanglement with Jada Pinkett Smith. No. For Stay Positive, I think this is a specifically great person to have on this show because she is really looking at the fact that, there's that quote where it's like, you need to love yourself before you can be loved by anyone else or something along those lines. But in reality, that is true. What she really does a great job of talking through is the fact that, she's in the business of self-actualization in the same way that therapy has kind of been more normalized recently. Dating coaching might come along there because it's really about looking within yourself, learning about yourself. And not only that, she does claim that quarantine dating is not dead. So, everyone's got some hope still. But I know this has been a very long intro, so I just want to dive right in. This is today's guest, Ruby Lay. Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing the podcast, Ruby. I was really excited when you reached out because you have such a fascinating job, for one, I guess, how would you describe your job?
Yeah, so I'm a dating coach for the good guys. That's my tagline, and that's why I've always labeled myself, because people started calling me like the Asian female of Hitch, and that's when people can understand it. So, but technically, dating coach, yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a good reference because I feel like Hitch was a very popular movie and we kind of understood that he was coming from a place of trying to make sure that you meet a partner rather than just a pickup artist or whatever, right? Which is kind of that would be the bad guys version maybe. But yeah.
Oh, and I guess with that, I wanted to also clarify because there was sometimes mix up on different interviews of, I used to be a matchmaker. I have experience in that, but I no longer do that. So sometimes it's easy to mix the two, but we can also clarify it, but just making sure that that's not kind of part of what I do anymore.
Got it. So yeah, you would define it as mainly helping good guys date essentially. And and how did you, I guess, obviously it's a pretty different type of job, which is always intriguing because, I kind of went into the comedy world and people are always like, well, what do you do, this and that? And it can be very different from day to day. But how did you find yourself working as a dating coach?
So, this story really starts back in, believe it or not, actually high school. So in high school, I was always a really shy, awkward person at first. And then I started to find myself maybe during the junior and senior year. And during that time, I started joining more clubs, right? And trying to meet new friends. And I remember being in this Rubik's Cube club, right? So you can imagine the type of people that are there. And I recognize a lot of the guys would talk about dating and how they'd have a tough time talking to girls. And something came about me. And I remember giving this one advice. And I said, what if you just look up, right? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, look up, when you're walking, just look at the girl. And I think that simple advice seemed to have changed his confidence in general, but also how he interacted with just anyone. And I saw that change. And then I honestly recognized I loved hearing about dating and people asking for dating advice. And it just became something that I really enjoyed. And at first I wondered, like, is there even a job for this? But growing in an up in an Asian household, no, there's no such thing as that.
Sure.
So I just tossed it to the side as my passion project. I went to college for different things, and I started like a love advice website. People would actually send in just questions. I would give free advice. And there's a moment that that site exploded, and I had way too many questions come in. So I shut that down. But when I shut that down, I recognized there has to be a way where I work with relationships. So that's when I got like my bachelor's in social work and my master's in marriage and family therapy. So I actually was a couples therapist for a while, thinking that that was my journey. But then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
realized, you know, a lot of these couples shouldn't have been together in the first place.
Oh,
So
uh-huh.
that's when I realized, you know, I want to help people find the right ones for them. You know, I want to
Right.
help people find the person for the long run. And that's when I started working with singles. I worked for matchmaking firms at first, thinking I wanted just to do matchmaking. But then I recognized matchmaking really doesn't help either, because you could put a perfect person in front of you, but if you're not confident in yourself, if you don't know how to socialize or date,
Right.
it doesn't work. And that's when I was picked up by eHarmony, and eHarmony made me their lead matchmaker, trainer, and coach. And then
Cool.
from there, that's when I recognized, you know, I want to help the people I want to help. I'm really passionate about. And that's when I realized I love helping the good guys and girls. So my business actually started off helping with both. But then I
Cool.
came to realize that I think it was really helpful for men to talk to a female. So I help
Oh, yeah.
men searching for a female. So help talking to me. I also grew up around brothers. I feel like I naturally think very logically. So all the pieces just came together, and I wanted to do this on my own. Once again, scaring my Asian parents, because they're like, "What? Like, you got a degree in this, and now you're gonna do your own business?" But you know, I wanted to do what I was passionate about. So I left eHarmony and has been doing this on my own for quite a while now.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I mean I think that's they should be excited because it's clearly a hole in the marketplace, I guess, right? I mean, I think I haven't, met someone like you before, or really heard a lot about, dating coaches, but specifically what you were saying about, helping guys, good guys, and being, the women's perspective too in their life. Do you find that like how does that kind of put you at an advantage, or like what sort of things do you feel like you have insight on that helps some of these guys?
Right. So it's not, and I always tell them, it's not just about, I think a lot of them buy into, right, because I've worked so hard to gather the experience and credibility. So a lot of them are, I will say, a lot of my clients are like the engineers, you know, the always in majoring in computer science, they're very logical. So they get me for that. But what I
Cool.
recognize that I really add value is they see the other side. Because I'm a
Yeah.
female that has been single, that has been through the ringer of my own growth. And for them to understand that there is a lady sitting across from them that is kind and nice, because sometimes, you know, they've been faced with not so nice women, right? But
Oh,
is
uh-huh.
here because I've had my own journey, or they can see how a woman would feel if a man said this, because I felt that way, right? So having and sharing with them what it feels like to be a woman, and what is potentially going on in a woman's head when you say something like that, is, I think, it helps them tremendously, I would say.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And I think like so many guys probably want to hear that perspective, and if they don't have sisters or a mom or I don't know, friends who are girls, of course, who can provide them with that, I'm sure it's like kind of, well, I'm sure it's also hard. Do you find that like maybe some aren't as open to what you have to tell them, even though they are, I mean, already opting in by hiring you, but like, I don't know, yeah.
Uh, there have been some challenging, I guess I'll
Okay.
say, clients that want to, I say, challenge me and everything that I say, right?
Yeah.
But I think what I always promote and I encourage for everybody is, I hope you come in this trying to understand. That's it. And that's in relationships too. I always say, no matter in a relationship or not, when you come from a point of really trying to understand the backstory or what you're trying to do, that hopefully brings up and opens up more for you to actually see what I'm trying to say. right? So
Sure.
I challenge them as well. And yeah, I mean, you can't change anyone's minds. I'll say that.
Hmm.
So there
Okay.
are points where I will explain, and hey, if they don't get it, then I'll just be honest with them, right? It's like, look, it seems like this is really hard for you. I'm just telling you this, but if you choose not to think that this is true, okay, then at least I'm telling
Yeah.
you this is what's going to happen if you keep asking the girl, why are you single all the time? You know, like you can keep doing that and see what
Right.
happens,
Right.
right? So I'm very real. I'm very real and straightforward with my clients. Like I'm
Mhm.
kind, but I'm straightforward in those moments when they think they can kind of keep their way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure that it is a tricky like line to walk. And but I was watching one of the testimonials of one of your clients who was Lucas, I think, and it was very sweet because I think, I definitely see your passion for helping people essentially, and it is so important, people finding love, people finding that, for also, even if that relationship itself doesn't work out, or it hasn't worked out yet, but it's just like the confidence that they get, because it is so, sometimes we do need validation from like the people that we want to romantically be involved with. But I'm wondering, yeah, like what types of, if you have had like a favorite story of a client and just seen them grow, even if it's meaning that they met someone or not, but like what that's looked like to you.
Oh boy. So actually, one of my favorites, the first one I think I thought of is he actually did do a video testimonial, and
Oh, uh-huh.
he came to me very self-conscious, had very low self-esteem, very stiff, and just awkward. And he would say that, like, I'm really awkward, Ruby. And that's all he would say.
Okay.
Hey, relax. And he's like,
Yeah.
no, girls, I haven't dated a girl. They just don't like me. So just coming from this place of not, like we were saying, just even being fully himself. He wasn't allowing himself to be authentically who he is in fear of people rejecting him in general, right?
Hmm.
And I just thought it was so great to see him at the end of it owning his awkwardness. And he's like, look, I am who I am. I slipped up. I'm awkward, and
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
trying,
huge.
I'm trying my best here. And that's why I always say, when people ask me what's the most rewarding part of my job, I actually don't say the engagements or marriages or even relationships. I think that's
Right,
great.
right.
It's great to see them in love. But what I love seeing is the guys finally feeling like they are worth love, and that they
Yeah.
deserve love, and that they have hope. Like they have hope that love is possible. Like that is so rewarding for me to see, because I'm helping them kind of bring out this potential in them that they never saw before.
Hmm.
And recognizing that you already have everything that you need, and you're already great, but you have to believe in it. And it's very,
Hmm.
very hard for them to believe in it. So it's quite a journey. Like with him, we did, I think, 3 months together. It was me constantly telling him, like, why are you doubting yourself? You're saying it again. Because there's
Yeah.
things
Uh-huh.
you'll say out loud, right? Like, oh,
Right.
I know I suck at it. And I was like, hey, why did you say that? Back it up,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Coach is like, because you can't, if you vocalize that, you're going to believe it. Um,
Right.
but that was one of my favorite stories, because he went through a really tough time in his past. He had a lot of his own trauma that he had to work through, but he's just a good person. And I really wanted to help him see that within himself. And luckily, yeah, now he's dating someone that appreciates him for who he is. So it's just
Cool.
a
Uh-huh.
double whammy of a great success, and it makes me really, really happy to see.
Yay. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think it is so valuable to everyone, and I know you're specifically looking at good guys, but for women, who are looking to date these good guys, it can be hard, I think, to probably meet people if they aren't ready, right? Have you ever had to turn away somebody because you're like, it's just not, you're not ready, or this just dating isn't going to work right now? Or is it more like you get them to that point, or?
Yeah, no, so I have turned away some people, and there
Yeah.
are two
Hmm.
main stories that are really highlighted for me, and one just actually happened last week. And it's when there is so much internally that needs to be unpacked,
Mm.
right? So let's say, for example, they can't figure out their own identity and what they want.
Right.
And in that conversation, when I asked a question, right, there was a lot of I don't knows. So tell me a little
Sure.
bit more about who you are. I don't know. I don't know. This is hard. Okay, well, let me help. Like, what do you
Uh-huh.
like? What do you like to do? I don't know. It's like, okay, what do you want? Right? I don't
Yeah,
know. And
that's
I was like,
tough.
okay, like there's a lot of things you don't know here. But I could
Right.
sense that there was deeper insecurities that needed to be healed, or wounds that needed to be healed, more than I could do. Because even though I'm trained in therapy, I'm not a therapist anymore. I'm a coach. So coach, I compare myself more to a fitness coach, right? A fitness coach can give you the actions to take, what to work out, what to eat. But if you have a body image issue that's internally, they're not going to help you with that, right? It's hard. That's another layer.
Yeah.
So in that particular case, I said, look, I think it would be beneficial for you to get help internally first and knowing who you are before you even think about going into a relationship. And I think that's for men and women. I think if you are not happy with yourself, where you are in your journey, your career, even what your relationships around you, it's not, you are going to need to get into a bad relationship, or it's just not going to work. So I'm just that honest. It's hard for them to hear because they think that having a partner will solve everything. But
right.
at the end of the day, if you don't even think you're great or you're happy with yourself, it's going to be hard to find someone else that will complement that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess the common saying is always like, if you don't love yourself, then how is anyone supposed to love you? But it's true, I guess. It's like a weird abstract, like it can feel strange to hear that sometimes, but I guess that's true. Do you like recommend, maybe see like a therapist or something?
Yes. I always try to phrase it in a way, it's like getting internal guidance and help, because therapy can be, I don't want to say taboo topic, but there's still stigma sometimes, and people might take it in the wrong way, right?
Right.
But I always vocalize it in a way that, look, I'm trying to help you. And I think this is the best way to help you. Right? Yeah. So in those cases, I try to help them with finding a great therapist that would help, that would be a good fit for them, giving them recommendations so they have direction. So I'm not just leaving them.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
I will say there are those clients, but there are those that I turn away because they don't, let's say, align with how I coach and what kind of results I want. So I help men who really want long-term healthy relationships. Right. But you may know there are obviously other coaches out there, like pickup artists, right? Or if you want to sleep with a bunch of girls, it's not my thing. Like, I don't.
You can't help us with that.
That's not my area of expertise. I mean, you can't do that. There's no shame in that, right? But I'm not that girl for you. Right. So there have been some clients that kind of come through that way, or they'll talk about women in a certain way, which is one instance which is really funny. I'm a woman myself, so it's interesting to me when men will talk about women in a very disrespectful way. But I'm
to you.
Yeah. So in those cases, once again, I just tell them, like, I really don't think we would just get along. And I'm that honest.
Yeah, exactly. It's you can turn away anyone. Interesting. Yeah, that's always I wonder too, like, do you think, where do you see sort of the industry of dating coaching going, or where is it lacking, I guess, because it feels pretty small. I mean, I guess I just, haven't heard a ton, and people are obviously signing up for apps and services that maybe are more in the matchmaking business, but yeah, I don't know, where do you see it headed?
I actually see it headed in the same way therapy has headed, because if you think about it, years ago, no one talked about self-help and getting a therapist or getting a counselor. It was such a big stigma, like, oh, I don't need help, right? But now it's become such a normal thing where people will say, oh yeah, my therapist said this, without ever questioning, oh, you have a therapist? Right? Because especially during these times, people are recognizing that helping yourself is really how you'll help others and things like that. So I feel like with look at online dating. There's a huge stigma towards that a long time ago.
Totally.
Right? So
yeah.
Everyone is doing it. Everyone knows about the apps. But I think with that becomes a lot more struggle, a lot more obstacles, because now what used to be so simple, where you probably walk into a bar and talk to someone, or you meet someone in college, now you have these options. But with these options, you are competing against other people, if that makes sense. And then you're recognizing that it's hurting your self-esteem. So it's interesting, because with online dating, it makes such great opportunity to meet people, but it now shows people that dating is harder. And that's what people are seeing. So I've actually seen people look for more dating coaches because they recognize they can't do it by themselves. Like, they can't figure out these apps. It's so confusing, or you can't figure out what a girl is saying when she texts you this and this,
Right.
So I actually think it will become more known, especially now that people are wanting more help in different areas of their life. First, fitness was great. Now it's mental health. And now dating, finding your partner it was first matchmaking. They thought that was the way to go. But I think as people are seeking help for things that they need help in, I think dating is a big one for sure in this modern day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, just the like learning curve of how everything is changing and like all the different apps and stuff. Have you like I know you spoke on like more options for sure, but like well in your TED talk too, you talked about like the fact that okay, it is there's a lot of like kind of surface level things that we think we have a type or we think we want this, and then it's sort of digging deeper and questioning that stuff, which is so important. But it feels like the apps are bringing us away from that because it's purely swiping on faces and you know maybe a little information. But yeah, how do you see that kind of like shaping how you know what problems your clients bring to you or what sort of things, I don't know, you noticed?
Right. So in I guess in problems that is it's creating is people are forgetting why they're there in the first place and what they want. Because even though, and I've had this even happen to my clients where we specifically talk about, like I talked in my TEDx talk about how I think it's helpful to make a list, but only of 10, right? Make a list of 10, no more, no less. It's a pretty good number. But what tends to happen is we create that 10, we go online dating, and then we pass a guy because he has a mustache. You know, because we forget, like
Right.
you're doing it. It's like it becomes a task and a chore every day.
uh,
And we're forgetting to reflect on what we're really looking for, and also remembering that these profiles that people create doesn't say everything about them. That person could have done it within literally a minute, right?
right, or
It
the
doesn't.
friend made it for them.
Oh, that's a big one. Yeah, that's a big one. The friend
Yeah,
did it, or
they're
just
like
because a girl wrote something very short doesn't mean she's not serious about finding a relationship. Like I hear
sure.
that one a lot.
Oh God,
Because
yeah.
girls don't need to write so much, right? So some profiles girls don't write a lot. But with that, it's recognizing that we then get into this cycle of, well, I'll say judging,
Yeah.
judging, assessing, and then we get hurt about it because then we think like if those people aren't liking us back or if not getting matches,
Yeah.
something's wrong with them. Oh, I hate online dating. So it becomes a cycle. Oh no,
Sure.
now I don't like any men, or oh, all women are awful. It becomes this cycle of losing yourself and then falling into this kind of hole of then blaming everything else, because you kind of lost sight of why you're there and what you're trying to do. I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think it totally does. Definitely the idea of like you know, as people are swiping, you know, I think I always think of it in the sense of like, okay, well, people are able to go through more people, but it's also like you're opening yourself up to way more rejection, even if it's a very surface level, like doesn't even mean a thing. But, you know, it's still scary for people and it still can hurt even if you don't realize it. But, and then, I mean, I know obviously you've probably been asked this a lot, but like during coronavirus and quarantine, how has that shaped, I guess, dating in your eyes?
Yeah. So I would say the good news is that dating isn't canceled. Conversations and connections are not canceled.
Nice. Yeah.
Relationships are not canceled. However, it just takes a shift. It just has to be shifted. So interesting enough, online dating has actually become more popular because that's the only way any of us can connect. And a lot of the
Sure.
apps are actually adapting to the pandemic by allowing you to do like a video call, like
Oh,
without
great.
sharing your number or anything like that. So if anything, conversations that start online, they last a little bit longer when you're getting to know the person, but now people do virtual dates.
Cool.
So that's been a really interesting, like new, I guess you say, chapter in my coaching, because
Yeah.
virtual dates are not the same as in-person dates.
Right. Yeah.
And people tend to get on virtual dates and they feel like it's like a business call or a Zoom
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
meeting.
yeah. Like an
So
interview.
practicing, yeah, exactly. So practicing, being able to connect with someone online. But I will say this, which is interesting to see, is that from even my girlfriends, so outside of my clients, a lot of girls have said that they really liked it because you build an emotional connection first.
Sure. Yeah, you have to.
You have to. You have to talk. You know,
Yeah.
you have to be able to create a conversation off of what you're saying and not what your body language is, or not just touching and
Right.
hugging, which is nice, but it will come. When you build that trust, most people do meet in person. Once they build that trust over like a month or so, they'll do like a
Right.
social distancing date. But once again, when they meet in person at that point, they already feel this level of safety and comfort because they already have this emotional connection. So I
Yeah.
actually think it's a really good build for a strong relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. That's a good optimistic outlook, I think, too, because everyone's freaking out.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, that's
exactly.
exciting. You're right. It is, I think, even so, thinking about like what types of dates people go on in a normal world, which might be like going to a movie or something, then you're really not interacting as much as like face to face, like, so how's it been for you? Like, yeah, that's a big change. And then I guess, well, this is very exciting as far as like, you talk about race in your TED Talk and in a lot of your, with your clients too, race preferences, what race they are, how that factors into their dating. And that's like a very tricky topic. Like, I think it's, hard to avoid no matter who you are. But namely, if you're not white, very hard to avoid. So yeah, I don't know if you've had, particular insights. It seems like you, because by virtue of being Asian yourself, you have a lot of Asian clients. Yeah, what have you kind of learned in that regard?
Oh, what I learned, I feel like a lot of things. So I'm trying to think of the
Yeah,
one
sorry,
thing.
big question
Yeah,
here.
the big
Why don't
question.
you tell us about race and dating, the
I
hardest things ever?
I think the biggest thing I've seen is the ability to take what you see and what you define with your race and ethnicity versus what society says.
Sure.
Huge, because I feel like a lot of my clients come to me. Yeah, I think because naturally I'm Asian, a lot of Asians come to me because they feel like I can relate,
Yeah.
connect with them. And what I hear a lot of times is they will hear of what social media has said about short men or
Mm-hmm.
Asian men and how they're on the bottom of the barrel. And so they take those stats and they take all of that info and they truly believe it. And then they have this whole definition connected to their race and their ethnicity
Mm.
instead of the positives of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like seeing, there's no more seeing, look, I have a lot of different layers to me. I have this kind of a different color to me because I have this culture that has built me to who I am. And there's parts of my culture that are amazing. Instead of seeing those things and the greatness of it, and especially if they, let's say, immigrated here at some point, they had to work hard, their family worked hard, seeing all the things it has done for you. Instead, they're seeing, oh, how what it must be a disadvantage and I can only work against that disadvantage versus
Mm.
looking at it in the, I guess, in shifting, I guess, in a positive way, is looking at it in a sense of no, 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 because at the end of the day, it's about you. It's not
Sure.
about all of us, as a community. They're working with you to find love. It's you working to find
Mhm.
love. And recognizing that there are always people out there that are having success. There's always
Yeah. Mhm.
one guy you can probably find that is Asian and short, and he found a girlfriend. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Every time people have told me or wondered, "Oh, is this possible?" I was like, "I can give you examples. Let me tell
Right, right. If you need to see that,
you. If
right.
you need to see it, I could definitely give you an example." Or with race, like I think the biggest thing that is a sensitive topic is about like Asian females dating white men only,
Mm.
right? And the wonder if a woman even wants an Asian man anymore. I'm like, well, my boyfriend's Asian, so
Right.
say
Got
that
one example
yeah,
right in
there's
front of
already
you.
one
Yeah.
person here, right?
Hmm.
Even just shifting the reality for them and recognizing there's obviously a lot of people they're not accounting for and they're only seeing the media
Sure.
is a huge one. It's being able to shape their identity and not letting anyone else come into that identity.
That's really true. But yeah, that is so hard, right? Because it's like representation is everything, and we grow up seeing these images, and I can totally, and I totally obviously have encountered not just the sort of Asian women dating white men or me dating a white guy, like that's a problem or it's not or whatever, right? So there's that, but then of course the flip side being oftentimes a lot of people who might have issue with that are Asian men who see it as kind of a rejection or see that general trend as a rejection, which you can't blame them in the sense of course on TV there's really just like white male romantic leads. Slowly maybe there's a few here and there, but that didn't happen until recently. And of course if we're looking for examples, it's great to have them in your back pocket or in your personal life, but if you don't have that, then you look to television and then it's like, what do we have now? More, so it's good. But But yeah, so I do see that being it's obviously very controversial, but it is a very relevant topic. It's so fascinating that it comes up, in the way it does. And I think also, I mean, you have an internet presence because oftentimes I'm sure that's how you advertise. That's how you get the word out there. We're on a podcast. So, the, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of, right, the reputation of like the incel or something where men who can't find somebody might feel like they need to take to the internet instead of talking to somebody. And I don't know if that's bumped up against, if you've encountered those people, if you've encountered people who maybe are from those groups because you're on the internet. I mean, I know I have, because I think I have, I'll do comedy about dating, or I'll do comedy about, or I won't do comedy about dating, but I'll just be online, my face or my videos or podcasts. And I think there are people who find it, and sometimes they're in a group that maybe doesn't feel so happy about women or Asian women or whatever. And so I get sometimes those comments bubbling up or messages. And yeah, I feel like it's hard to put yourself out there as an Asian woman on the internet because of that reason, even if you're not even touching on the topic of dating, but you clearly are. So yeah, I don't know if you've encountered that or how that's been.
Yeah, and I will say that more recently, I have talked about being Asian and race. Actually, in the first 3 years of my business, I didn't mention any of that. I was new. I didn't want to kind of touch such a controversial and sensitive topic.
Sure.
But in this year, with me growing, I was like, I feel, and with everything going on, I always feel like if you have a voice or a platform, right, something, I want to say something. And because I am Asian, like I don't want to pretend like I don't see that. It's interesting.
Right.
When I started talking more about that, of course, naturally you get people who unfollow you, who don't want to listen to you anymore. And quite honestly, it's just accepting that those are not the right people to kind of be in the circle anyways. And sometimes, yeah, I get the negative comments. Even something like I did an interview somewhere, and a man commented saying like, oh, she looks so young and sounds so young. Right. And I was like, okay, well, and I wanted to comment being like, it's my Asian genes. It's what we have.
Right. Yeah. Like, welcome to our world.
Yeah. And it's like, well, thanks for listening anyways. Right. Because obviously you had to listen to view that. But interesting enough, like this is actually a funny story. So, this story reminds me of it. Back on my eHarmony days, actually just like my inquiry calls now, it's unlikely right now for an inquiry call to come on not knowing that I'm Asian. But before, I used to take on calls with clients and they would just hear my voice. So you can't tell that I'm Asian, right? And I remember I took on this one client on the phone. I was like, hey, what do you want in a woman? And he basically said, well, I'm open to any kind of ladies, blah, blah, except Asian ladies. And I was like, oh, why is that? And he says, oh, because I really feel like they have no sense of character. They don't know who they are. And they have no personality. And just quite honestly, they're like blobs to me. And I was like,
you're like, oops.
Okay. And then it's funny because at that point I was like, oh, by the way, aren't you around the area? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, why don't you come meet me in person? And I just felt like I wanted to get more clarity, but I didn't want to just say on the phone, by the way, I'm Asian, right?
Sure.
So it was funny.
Yeah, what an opportunity.
Yes. So when he came in, I will never forget when he was waiting in the lobby and they're like, oh, Ruby's coming out. And I came out and I was like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. His face. Like he saw he was so regretful of the decision he's made because he didn't know I was Asian. I think I don't have much of an accent, so you can't tell. But funny enough, in that conversation, we were connecting. I didn't bring up that topic. And at the end of it, I said, so are we clear on who you want, what you're looking for? And he's like, quite honestly, Ruby, if you give me someone like with your kind of personality, that'd be great because you're awesome. And I was like, oh, you mean Asian? And I called it out for that. But
nice.
Once again, it's one of those things where for certain people, if they don't allow or or have an opportunity to see another side, right, and to see who this Asian person is and understand maybe more of who they are than just a race, I think more people can turn around. But I don't think being on the internet, we don't really have that option unless you're talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Like, what can we really do if people look at us and judge. And that's that. You could just only try your best.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean it is funny because people do have well, yeah, essentially just like what you're saying about questioning it a little bit more and digging deeper into why people might even have racial preferences, because I think it is fascinating when it is kind of accepted in some ways that people might have that. Even certain apps might allow you to filter as such, and like it's kind of a terrifying concept. But yeah, it's just then when it gets real uncomfortable when you start to ask, right, like what does that mean? Like what kind of qualities do you think make up that race? And like at the end of the day, there's really no right answer because everybody's different. But that's a fun story.
Yeah, yeah. I will never forget that story. Oh,
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
great afterwards, at least.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I think it is tough because especially right now, it's hard to have those harder conversations. I think, and I understand. I think people have less energy to be like, "Oh, am I gonna prove this person wrong, or can I just move on with my life?" And I would understand if you also were like, "Yeah, okay, screw you, moving on to the next guy," to who's actually more open-minded. But kudos for actually going through the trouble of meeting him in person and changing his worldview, because who knows. But yeah, and overall, like, I guess with all the dating preference stuff, like, have you seen big changes in people's preferences when you coach them, or are people kind of set in their ways? I don't know.
That's a really good question. So I feel like it depends on the person, right? But I do feel I'm trying to think, most of the people I've worked with, yeah, there has been some shift in what they've said they wanted, because usually what they said they wanted is not necessarily what they need. It's a preference, right? I always tell people it's okay to be selective, but I don't think it's healthy to be picky. So there are some things that, is it really necessary to want that in someone? Do you really want a girl that plays games, or that really understands that you can play your games, she understands your hobbies, and she has her own,
Right.
But does she need to be a gamer? Not really. It's about finding what it is about that quality you want so bad, and seeing what it really means.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think the hardest conversations I've had when it comes for preferences is when it comes to attraction. Because then there's that layer of, oh, I'm just not attracted. Oh, I'm looking for this kind of woman. And I have a lot of real talks where I will see a man show me, these are the kind of girls I like. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to go after you, though. So
Oh, yeah.
having those real conversations, and the reason why I say that is because, there are the people who want the models, the Instagram influencer with all the nice photos, but, right. But then I have them think, okay, get in her shoes. What does she want?
Sure.
Like, get in her shoes. If you're that model, that Instagram model, what do you think she's going to be going after? Right? What do you think her lifestyle is? And can you provide that lifestyle? But if you can, what else do you have going for you? Right? So those are really the tough conversations about, I guess, preferences and what they're looking for. Because qualities, characteristics, those are great. But I think the layer that's so hard to explain for any of us is what we're attracted to. So I mean, I had a conversation earlier with someone, because he's like, Ruby, can you be honest? Like, these girls that I like, or the girls that I'm passing on, am I being too tough? Am I being too picky? And we just had to dive a little bit more about why he passed on them, especially if they are cute. What is it? Oh, well, her facial structure, her bone is not. And I was like, what? That doesn't really mean.
The bone is too
the
off.
bone is too, yes, exactly. It's not proportionate
that.
too much, or I was like, oh my gosh. So those kind of things I challenge. I challenge them in having these discussions of what attraction really, really means to them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Because the attraction thing, it does sometimes. So, I think we're kind of maybe more hands off in that realm, because we feel like, oh, well, it's just you're born like you want a certain thing, which is true. Right. But then also, the more that we look into those, sometimes we're like, oh, this is kind of weird. Maybe it's because I saw that movie when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Or like, I grew up really liking that character or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the crazy thing, I guess, too.
When you ask people for celebrity crushes, then you really wonder, wait, when did that start for me? And because I have the celebrity crush, I view men, you want that, But then I remind people that's a celebrity. It's a different ball game than just a normal person.
Yeah. Very, very different playing field. Which kind of reminds me too, because I know, I mean, this is just like pop culture stuff, but all the, people freaking out about Will and Jada and their relationship and like all the celebrity couples that I think end up being weirdly some of the only couples that we see, right? People see their parents, but if that's not a great example, then maybe they turn to like, oh, wow, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend seem like they're having a good time. But I don't know if if you have any advice on that, like how do people find kind of that, what they actually want in a relationship if they haven't even had examples that are good for them?
Well, I first think that if you understand yourself, then you can understand others. And I think that's step one, because once you understand yourself and potentially what kind of person would be good for you, that's already a starting point. So, and I get that question actually a lot, because a lot of clients, maybe they'll come in completely inexperienced, never having a relationship, right? And so they don't know. They don't know what a healthy relationship could look like. But I always start them off with, okay, tell me who you are. Because obviously with just that layer, there's obviously a person out there that would probably be compatible with you. And then there's obviously extra layers that we can't account for, areas that you want to grow in, and maybe that person will help you grow in. Relationships do help us grow, but there's still a level of compatibility that needs to be there with your personality. And then I guess on top of that, if they didn't have a healthy, I guess, example of a relationship, I usually ask them, and this is the main one, like, what do you see in your friends? Your close friends, why did you choose them? Because friends are a choice, right? Yeah. So why are you close to them, and what do you appreciate about them? And how do you communicate with them? How do you treat that friendship? Because that is a relationship. I feel a lot of people tend to forget that just because they're not romantic, doesn't mean that you did not develop any relationship skills, because friendships require relationship skills too. And so totally, I think viewing it in that perspective, they start to recognize, oh wait, no, I'm really great at conflict. When my friend went through this, I helped with that. I'm caring. I know that I need quality time with my friends. Yeah. That's how we hang out. That's how we get along, right? So they're starting to see, oh, there is a level already that you have, and it's basing it off of that to find a romantic version of, I guess, friendship, which I believe relationships, you have that best friend, that lover. So there's still that best friend aspect of it that's there.
Right. Ooh, yeah. No, I hadn't actually... I mean, it definitely makes sense when you say it, but I feel like that connection between friendships and relationships really isn't made, because people are like, oh, platonic, that's separate. But I know plenty of people who like maybe feel like they themselves haven't had a strong romantic relationship, but they've got like so many friends. So it's like, well, of course, somebody's out there is gonna love you, because clearly you do well with people in general. But yeah, that's exciting. I guess that kind of leads me to a probably dumb question, but do you believe in the friend zone, or like what's sort of your take on all that?
Oh, that's a tricky one. This one's also a sensitive topic for many people, right? There's always a huge debate on this.
Controversial stuff. We're delving deep here.
So I actually, I don't believe in it, in the sense of like it's a zone that people create for themselves. Though I believe in the action, like, some people, you really only see that friend as a platonic, kind of a relationship. You only see it as a friend. And that's what it is. That's all it is. Right. There is no zone that all of a sudden you enter into, like Twilight Zone. Right. It just doesn't, it's not that. It's if anything, you are creating that space and that environment. And what I've seen a lot for people who are very sensitive, even when I say friend zone, because they feel like they've been put in there for so long and constantly. Usually what I tell them is, a lot of times when they're starting to gain that feeling for a lady, they are already putting themselves there before the lady puts themselves there. They're creating the environment because they've already been there and they're afraid of it and they're kind of scared. And because of that fear, there isn't that even potential to be romantic, because they already put themselves there before they even know it. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I always say it's something that you have created for yourself. It's like anything when people think that they're stuck in, let's say for women, I get a lot, oh, I always get the bad boys, I always get the bad guys, you know? Like, oh, I must be this kind of woman, like that's all there is out there, that's all I get, and that's all I have. But once again, they don't call it like, they don't say like, oh, I have a bad boy zone, you know, or something. They don't say that.
Right.
It's recognizing that you're doing something is happening. You're either attracted to these people or doing something that attracts them that's creating this, right? So that's what I say for the friend zone too. There's something happening there internally for yourself, mostly, that's already putting yourself there before the woman even says so.
It kind of applies in general, because I'm thinking about how, like, you know, sometimes you think you're a certain way, and even what you're saying earlier with like racial stereotypes, it can, if you're more aware of certain ones, it can make you kind of like go into that mindset a little bit. And of course, you know, there's many factors, but that's why I guess they always say like, oh, you know, power poses, or like, you know, they're doing things that are kind of like outside in, because then that way you can feel like you can break out of those things subconsciously.
Yes. I think I love that word, breaking out of it, because it takes jumping out of that comfort zone, and it takes doing something that is scary and risky to recognize, oh, wait, was there a zone? Because I just broke out of it, you know, because I had to take this risk. And I think if anything, people are more scared of the risk than they are of the reward. So the rejection, I know rejection can really hurt, but I feel like a lot of people fear that. And that's why people end up in the quote unquote friend zone, is because they always say, oh, I don't want to lose that friend. I don't want her to think of me any differently. And I don't want her to, you know, think I'm a weirdo or a creep or anything like that. There's so much worry in what the other person may think of you and what the risk of it all, rather than recognizing this actually could be a big turning point for you, and quite honestly, a big growing point for you and the girl too. Because I will be honest that there are some, let's say, men or women, both, but I guess in this situation when I say like nice guy at times, but there are certain ladies that will want to treat you as a friend without ever seeing you as a romantic interest, because they know you will cater to her, right? But because those men don't stand up for themselves and being direct and straightforward. And when I recognize men will do that, there are certain men that will be straightforward with ladies. That's a growing point for those women too. So it's a win-win kind of situation. You're both going to grow, even if there is tension or some conflict. You know, it takes conflict to grow, is what I say. It takes failure to grow too. That's what I say.
Cool. Yeah. And that can be so scary, as you said. But I remember even in that one, you know, the testimonial that I did see, he talked about you giving assignments and telling him to go out and just talk to somebody on the, you know, talk to a stranger, talk to a woman he doesn't know. And like that, that would definitely be like pretty scary even for myself. And you know, even if it's not romantic, right? Just like talking to strangers, yikes, you know, we're told not to do that. So what kind of examples of things do you find are helpful, I guess, for people who, you know, maybe are just trying to, break out or kind of get out of a habit?
Right. So I always tell people, find the root of that fear. So let's say, for example, most people are afraid to talk to like strangers. First they say women, but then they notice strangers in general. It's scary.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it about that that's scary? Well, it's very anxiety provoking because I'm afraid of what they think of me. Okay, and I believe in, what do you call it, practicing until you get desensitized to it, like you get used to it, right? Because it's no longer this fear and unknown. You've done it so many times, you're like, look, I'm used to no's now. It's no big deal. Because what they start realizing is when like, for example, there's a person I did, like he didn't talk to strangers, but I gave him the assignment to do vlogs, right? And when he did a vlog, he had to be outside walking around doing a vlog. But obviously when you're outside, there's people walking around, there's cars walking by, right? And that creates so much anxiety. So, but because you're wondering, oh, they must think I'm weird because I'm talking to myself or all those things. So I put them in those situations so you know how to kind of handle the after effect of it. And I help provide tools to figure out what's going on, what are they saying to themselves when this is happening, and how to overcome that. Because I've always said at the end of the day, we create our own narrative, and that's what brings us down. So I practice a lot of reframing and challenging your own perspective and story that you've given a situation. And that is usually the biggest game changer. So I put them in situations so they can practice reframing it and creating a new story for themselves versus, oh, she said no to me, I must not be good looking. You know,
yeah.
She said
Yeah,
she didn't answer me, I must not be good enough. And it's changing that language. That's a pretty big practice.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that probably, because it is so true that you can get into your head and be like, this is what happened. And then if you actually saw like what the other person was going through, maybe they just like forgot, or like they went through something tough and, and they totally dropped everything with their app or their, texts, and has nothing to do with like the way you look. So of course it's tricky.
Exactly. I always, I love this kind of practice because, and this is, I guess, where the female perspective is helpful because, like I had this one instance where a girl literally, I think a guy, my client asked her something very simple. They were in a grocery store. He said, oh, are you still looking at this? Or are you still looking at that? And she looks at him, rolls her eyes and says, you're not my type. Right? And it's like, is this a dating event? But she answered, right. It was so strange. And he was at first really hurt about it. But then he recognized, wait a second, like, what is it like in her shoes? Right? What is her story? Maybe she's had really bad experiences with men hitting on her all the time and she doesn't want to deal with it. Or maybe she views herself in this kind of pedestal where she thinks any man that speaks to her is hitting on her. But that's her story. And a lot of times it's not really about you. And the only way it's about you is if you're rude, you're disrespectful, you obviously are crossing boundaries. Which most of my guys, I mean, they're the good guys. They're the other extreme. They're not rude. They're not disrespectful. They're too nice. So I never had to face the other extreme so far. But yeah, it's viewing what else could be happening in this story that you don't see.
Yeah. Everybody's like fighting their own battles or doing their own thing. But yeah, that's an interesting example because I feel like sometimes as a woman out in the world too, it's like sometimes you do the thing where you're like, thinking. Maybe another layer of that is, oh, well, I don't want to say, I think this person might be interested, but I don't want to assume that because God forbid they think I'm going to be that interesting. So you're like, there's so many layers. You're like, I mean, I probably shouldn't even assume this is a date because why should I assume that, right? And there's all
true.
that.
That's true. It goes into just a web of different ways that it can all go. And that's why I think a popular question I always get is, what does this mean? Guys or girls, they'll always say, what does this mean when he says this? What does it mean when she says that? He did this on the date. Is it a date? We did this, right? and I always bring it back to, look, if this is a issue, guess where you can get your answer? The person. That's it. Like,
what? How dare you say that?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? I don't want to have to ask. And I was like, there's actually a way to ask without being without assuming or judging someone, really.
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, people actually do appreciate honesty and clarity. You just have to know how to craft it. And people think that they're creating conflict by wanting more clarity in the situation, but it's not. It's just about how to word it all. But yeah, if you ever question, what do you mean? Just ask the person. But I mean, I guess you can literally ask the person, what do you mean by that? That works.
Yeah, geesh. The idea of that is daunting, but it is true. Granted, I think dating coaches would be out of a job if we were all very comfortable being like, hey, what's going on here? So luckily, that's not human nature. But I mean, this is all really cool stuff. I'm very, there's so many things, but I did want to ask you too, just like separate from dating stuff. But, this is kind of the time when we ask about like, oh, positivity. This is kind of like the positivity podcast, even though right now is not a great time to be positive because everything's going crazy. But, I don't know if you have any like things either from what you've learned from your job or just general personal things where you've felt like you can share a tip of positivity or outlook.
Yeah. I think my favorite quote that I love to say to everyone is, finding love isn't easy. No one ever said it's easy, but it's always worth it. Always. Mm-hmm. And I truly, truly believe that dating and finding love can really be such a great experience for everybody. I feel like it's so easy to be negative about dating. That's like the one area that I hear so many complaints about.
Right.
And
it's very popular.
Yeah. But if you just remember and ask yourself, how do I have fun with this? How do I make this enjoyable for myself? And how do I add and continue that joy and hope and positivity to others? The dating experience completely changes because you decide to go on dates that are fun for you. You help in the planning process so that you know that even if the guy or girl isn't a right fit, you are enjoying the date itself. You create an environment that is more filled with possibility and hope with that, and recognizing that just because that person didn't work out, that's okay. Like, they didn't work out for whatever reason. You learned something, you grew from it.
Yeah.
Now keep moving forward. And I think I truly believe there is really someone out there for everybody. Everybody. No matter where you're at and no matter what level or stage of life you are at, there is always someone there. But you have to do the work and get there. And make it a fun journey by asking yourself, how do I make this fun for myself? And when you just ask that question, it becomes fun. It really, really can be. And if you need a break, take a break. Take care of yourself. Don't be so hard on it. But I think that's the biggest thing with dating. There's just so much, I guess you say, not bad news. There's not really bad news in dating, but there's like complaints, and you go through Reddit or something, and it's all these bad things about men or women, and it's just it's just remembering to, at the end of the day, ask yourself, what can I do in this? Because you have the power, you have the control, you're the only person you really can control, and at least make it fun for yourself. And trust me, if you just ask yourself that, it can be fun because you allow it to be.
I love that. Yeah. Just stay off Reddit. That's good advice right there. But yeah, I mean, the entire thing, it is weird because I feel like dating, more than a lot of things, people kind of see it as like, if you don't find the person, then it's like all a wash,
Yes.
Even though people totally will eventually look back and say like, oh yeah, that failed relationship helped me grow because I knew this and then I learned this about myself. But in the moment, it can feel probably like, oh, well, then the past year is just throw it out the window,
It's true. It's true.
So
and that's why I like to tell everybody, remember, I really believe that everything has a purpose, but look for that purpose. That breakup was really hard. Okay, it's okay to feel it out, grieve, but recognize what was the purpose of this. And a lot of times, no matter how bad the relationship was, they recognize the bigger purpose. And usually they're happy with that growth and recognizing that maybe you're out of that relationship for a good reason, because can you imagine still being in it right now? And asking yourselves those hard questions. But I think just remembering what is the purpose, what happened there, and you'll recognize that you've grown and you appreciate your own growth and self with it.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful. I mean, yeah, and then I guess because we're kind of winding down here, what sort of, if you want to plug where people can find you, or what type of person you think could benefit from your services. Of course, I think they probably know by listening through all this, but yeah, if you want to just talk about it.
Sure. So yeah, my clients I call the quote unquote good guys, and what that really means is that you have a good heart. You're a good person. You just want to find that special someone for you, but you just don't know how. You don't know what you're doing wrong. It doesn't matter if you are inexperienced, or it doesn't matter if you just can't find that certain lady you're looking for. As long as you feel like you're in it for the long run to find that long-term happy relationship, that's who I help out. And if you're having trouble finding quality dates, I always offer this free ebook where it gives you the exact 5 steps to get to quality dates. That really helps you focus. So you can find that on goodgentleman.com/ebook. But you can go to that link. And when I say good gentleman, remember it's singular. A lot of people go to the other one. Yeah, that's different. Yeah. So just go to So just go to goodgentlemansingular.com, and that's where you can find me if you have any questions for any of that.
Sweet. All right. Well, yeah, that's beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing all this advice and knowledge. I think it gives me hope for people everywhere to find love, but also, during this time, it's clearly still alive and well, and people aren't hopefully isolating too hard.
Yes, there's hope, everyone. There are people getting into relationships even during the pandemic. It's Very possible.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you again. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. All right. Bye. I hope you guys enjoyed that chat with Ruby. I know that was a kind of unique interview for Stay Positive. I don't always talk about people's, I don't always cover one topic with somebody. I think it was fun that she had this sort of expertise, and hope it was kind of enlightening in some ways, even if you're not, a dude looking for a gal, or if you're just thinking about hiring a dating coach someday, or thinking about just like the self-improvement coach or career coach. They exist, apparently. Just another fun reminder to subscribe to Disney Plus on September 4th and only watch Earth to Dead first, because that's important to me. And also just to have, some time to focus on things in your environment. One thing that I discovered recently is I just went on a little socially distanced road trip where I got to spend a little bit of time outside of where I live, which was fun because normally I'm here. And look, I have one of the best quarantine situations, so I can't complain. But it was kind of nice to have a change of scenery. And I've heard people talk about change of scenery, and it does help. But one thing I realized when I got back is there are certain little stupid things around, maybe it's a certain shirt or a piece of paper or something that I'll see, and it'll remind me of a memory that's one of those embarrassing memories, or oh, I wish I'd done this differently kind of regret memories. And that's the thing that you just don't have in a new place, right? If I'm going to a brand new place, or Airbnb or something like that, which is where I stayed this weekend, nothing there is reminding me of that embarrassing moment 5 years ago when I wore the shirt with the weird pants and it went wrong or something. But when I got back home and I see the shirt, I'm like, oh, and it's it happens so quickly that I don't even notice. But because I'd been gone for so long and it happened, I was like, oh, there are stupid things in my closet or around me that I just need to get rid of, because it kind of sends me to this bad place. And especially in quarantine, I'm just wallowing in the bad place all the time. So I'm kind of interested in encouraging people to, I guess, kind of clear the clutter. I know that's a thing that I've been hearing from the Marie Kondo folks. And I'm I've been messy my whole damn life. I am fine living in my own damn filth. No need to tell me differently. But there is something true about, then you're just kind of removing things that could be negative. And sure, there are some things that have good memories, but for some reason my mind doesn't go there. So, and I'm a huge, not a hoarder, but I would say I don't like throwing things away, because I'm I don't want to be wasteful, and the shirt is still fine. There's not there's 3 holes, but there's not 4 holes. And, there's so many things that I want to keep, but I think sometimes they've overstayed their welcome. So, I'll use them as rags. I have a lot of messes that I can clean up, and I don't have to use paper towels. I'll fucking make a rag. There's a lot of things like that are kind of sitting around, and so I'm going to try to do that this weekend, and I encourage you to do it too. So that's my little outro tip that nobody asked for. Subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Follow us. Stay positive. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter. I say us, it's just me. I'm on Twitter. Follow me, Sierra Cato, on all those things too. And if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, which is iTunes or whatever, Apple Music, whatever people call it these days. It's changing every damn day. God damn it. God damn it, Steve Jobs. Why'd you let them take over the company? I don't know what's happening. If you could leave us a review, that's really helpful. And, I don't know, just interact with the world, but not with your face. Keep it behind the mask, babies. All right. That's all for today. Thank you.
It's time to smile, motherfuckers!